And we welcome you to United in Liberty Radio. I'm Dustin Harris.
This is Joe Olivas.
And we are hanging out with you. This is an April Fool's Day version of United in Liberty Radio. April Fools. Hey, Joe, good to be with you.
Good to be with you as well.
We are hanging out in our super secret, our bunker-busting, bomb-proof room deep inside the Rocky Mountain. Again, we're not going to tell you which mountain that is, though I think they're honing in on our place, Joe.
Of course, anytime you talk about principle enough, that's going to raise some red flags for those unprincipled individuals.
The fun thing about looking at what's going on in the world, and we're going to get into that today, this is the second week after the enormous takeover of capitalism, if you will, with the health care. We're 2 weeks into this already. We're going to get into some of the things that are going on in the news, but the fun thing to me, Joe, is taking these things that are going on in the United States of America, looking at the current events, and then maybe moving away from what other talk show hosts are talking about, because bless their hearts, they talk about the current events, they get riled up, they're entertaining, they're fun to listen to, but one point that they miss, I think, often is the principle of the thing. And that's really what we need to talk about and what we do talk about here on United in Liberty Radio.
Yeah, they've got to take every single thing that they're talking about. At least that's what we're doing, is taking what we're talking about and what's going on, and then just taking that back to the principles. And once we understand where they stand on a principle, or the principles of freedom and liberty, then we know what direction that we can head. And a big one right now, especially with this and this takeover of healthcare and destruction of capitalism, if you will. Principle number 11 from our principles of liberty, and that one is that prosperity occurs when free enterprise and private property exist with minimal government regulation and restrained debt.
I don't know what you're talking about, Joe. That has nothing to do with the healthcare.
Oh, that has everything.
I mean, we're talking about free healthcare for everybody. What does that have to do with private enterprise?
Oh, you know what? It has everything to do with it. If you look at the principles, and you have to understand there's unintended consequences for everything. I mean, there's consequences for everything. You can't do something without a consequence, good or bad.
I want you to hold on to that phrase, unintended consequences, because we're going to come back to that later on in the hour.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that's been coming up lately. The problem is people don't recognize, if you're not looking at the principle of the issue, there are going to be some very serious unintended consequences. And there's unintended consequences in everything. You could live a principle-based life, and there could be unintended consequences for your choices. But if it's a principle-based life, the unintended consequences are more often than not going to be positive and favorable because of the principle.
Which is why we live by principle.
That's right.
It doesn't mean you're not going to have problems. It doesn't mean you're not going to have issues. It doesn't mean that your family's going to be perfect and you're going to have perfect health and your finances are going to be sweet. What it means is you live by principle and you don't live in fear because you know you're doing what's right.
Yeah, and everything is based upon those principles, and again, as a result, the unintended consequences that follow, they're good or bad depending on whether or not it's a principle-based decision or not.
Let me ask you that. What do you mean by unintended consequences? Define that.
Well, I mean, those are the things that take place that you didn't foresee, that you didn't take your decision down the road.
So in other words, if I start a business, an intended consequence is to make money, right?
Well, an intended consequence of your consequences or your goal is to make money.
Okay.
But your goal
But
is
that's
to be
what I
profitable.
foresee. I mean, that's the whole purpose of me setting up and jumping through the hoops to start the business and advertising and do everything you got to do to start a business. And this is just an example. But the intended consequences are that if I do these things and if I am a good business, if the customers see it as a value in their life, then the intended consequences is to make money. Give me an example of an unintended consequence.
Okay, two examples. If you did everything by principle and you were honest and had integrity and you understood what capitalism was, the unintended consequence is your business grows and you can either A, sell it for more than what it cost you to get involved, or it grows and you open up a second or third or fourth location. Those are maybe unintended consequences.
In other words, you didn't plan for that up front.
They
happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now
what about on the negative side?
On the negative side, let's say you cut some corners. Let's say the product that you're selling or that you've got in your store is a faulty product or defective product.
Right.
The unintended,
in other words, toys made in China.
Yeah, lead poisoning, things
Okay.
like, the things that are, you cut the corners.
Right.
And so you violated principle. The unintended consequence is your customers will start to speak to other individuals in the community, and your business will die. Your business will begin to suffer, and you may go bankrupt, lose your house, lose your car, lose other things that you didn't foresee. Those were the unintended consequences of your unprincipled decision.
Okay, and I think that's really going to kind of be the theme today. So let's start out, first of all, let's talking about the week and what's going on specifically with our Commander-in-Chief. Our Commander-in-Chief is on his sell the healthcare legislation tour after the healthcare legislation has passed. I don't get that.
It's a buyer's remorse tour. I mean, he knows people are unhappy. He knows people don't like what's taken place, and he's got to convince you that what he's done is in your best interest.
So the unintended consequence for him of passing this health care, he thought that he would wake up Monday morning, the morning after, if you will. We're not talking about the pill here, but the morning after, he would wake up and he would say, hey, look, the polls shot right up. My approval rating went through the roof. Everybody loves me. Nobody hates me. And the exact opposite has happened.
Yeah, he thought he was going to go into election mode to get all of his followers, if you will, reelected come November. But now he's playing defense. He's trying to get people to. He's acting like he's playing offense. He's acting like he's doing what's good for the company good for the country by letting you know all the benefits you're going to receive. But we've heard about all that all before. So now he's just playing defense right now, and he's trying to get people to embrace what he knows and the rest of the country knows is not what we wanted.
Right. And so he's out trying to sell the bill. I don't think that in history there has ever been, maybe I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember ever, presidents go out and they try to sell ideas before they become law. Once they become law, I don't remember one case where the President of the United States had to go out and resell and say, trust me guys, it's really going to be a good deal.
Yeah, I don't recall anything either. In fact, what I do recall, as you bring up that statement, is Joe Biden during the election saying there's going to be some things that we're going to have to do, some hard decisions that are not going to appear to be good, or I'm paraphrasing, but these things aren't going to be popular. We're going to have to make some very hard decisions. He was trying to sell us on the agenda before the agenda really got into play.
Who was that, by the way? Joe who?
Biden, I think that's what it was. I don't know.
I just never hear about him.
I don't like to read too much of what he says because some of the stuff he's been saying lately has been foul mouth. Some of the, if you read some of the stories, some of the things that he said. But again, there's unintended consequences for every decision, and you want to make sure that you're principle based on the decisions you make, because the unintended consequences, if you violate principle, are going to be drastic and they're going to be severe.
Okay, so let me back up for just a second. I don't want to rehash and beat a dead horse, but I just want to make sure I understand. When you make decisions based on principle, there's still going to be negative unintended consequences. Correct?
You may come across something that you didn't foresee, because we can't foresee everything.
Right.
You can be a principle-based business owner, and somebody could lie about your business, and an unintended consequence of that could be that your business could suffer.
So devil's advocate here. Why should I live by principle? If I'm going to get unintended consequences if I live by principle, and I'm going to get unintended consequences if I don't live by principle, most people would say, well, let's lie a little here, cheat a little there, do what I can to get up the corporate ladder, if I will. They're just white lies anyway. Why not take that path?
Well, you'd have more people on your side if you could support the decisions that you make based upon principle, and you can control the unintended consequences a little bit better. They will lean in your favor because of the fact that you made a principle-based decision. You can't live a good life, or you can't try and live a good life without good things happening to you. Mm-hmm. You're not going to escape everything.
Is that karma?
Well, I don't know if it's karma. I just think it's just a natural law of the universe.
Well, let me be bold. I think it's God.
Well, you know what? I think the founders thought that as well. Mm-hmm.